opening day coverage at noon. Then it's the O's and the Rangers Monday on Channel 2.
An IRA versus the IRS Monday at 5 on Newscope.
Silver Spoons and Punky Brewster will not be seen at this time. Stay tuned now for Orioles Alive in 85.
I got it! I got it! I got it! One! Hey, here we go. Come on now. Come, big down. Come, baby. Shoot a minute. Help to me now. Get the seed you need. Come, baby. Bring it one time. Yeah, attaboy. Hey. Here we go. Right now. Here we go. All right.
WMAR-TV Sports presents Orioles Magic, Alive in 85. Brought to you in part by Coors Light. So turn it loose tonight with a silver bullet. By Nissan and your nearby Nissan dealers. See one today for a test drive. And by Horn & Horn Smorgasbord. Great comebacks at a great price.
Good evening and welcome to Orioles Magic Alive in 85. I'm John Saunders, and tonight we bring you a special one-hour preview of the 1985 Baltimore Orioles as they begin their quest to return to championship form. We hope that you will stay with us for the entire hour. We have a lot in store for you. You'll hear from some of the new guys, the latest additions to the O's squad, the old veterans who've been with the team for years, and we'll introduce you to some of the up-and-comers in the organization, plus much, much more. It all begins in tropical climes of Miami, and Jack Dawson begins our show tonight with a look at the spring of 85.
South Florida in the winter. It conjures up thoughts of sunsets on the bay, sailboats pushed gently along by the breeze, and for baseball fans, thoughts of sunny days in the old ballpark, and those lazy workouts as the Baltimore Orioles perform in their annual midwinter saga known as spring training. The pitching machine creaks and pitches.
Hey! Yes, he did. Yes, sir.
The hitters twirl and swing. The fielders scoop and throw. The coaches bark and point.
If there's any question, tell him to take it and you keep right on going to first base.
There is nothing in sports to compare with baseball's spring training. The air is light and breezy. The sun is warm and relaxing. The crowd's laid back and suntanned. The fans close and the players friendly. The pace is anything but hectic. But in this spring of 85, there was something noticeably different about the Orioles camp, an unusual tension, a new air of fresh commitment, a more intense group, so different from a year ago when all the talk was about the World Series. This spring, there was talk about last season, but the memories were not fond ones. 1984 had been a year of frustration for Baltimore. Hitters did not hit, fielders did not field, and Joe Altobelli struggled to find a combination that would produce wins. The Tigers had surged to a 35-5 start and left the Orioles in their April dust. From that point on, it was a struggle just to keep pace, and the glimmer of the World Series rings quickly wore off. The season ended with the Orioles in 5th place. The scene was set for change, and it came. Al Bumbry and Ken Singleton were released, along with 2 other veterans, and there was an air of an impending shakeup. The Orioles' 85 season actually began in 84, in late October, when the team journeyed to Japan for 3 weeks. The trip seemed to heal the wounds of the poor year, pulling this family-oriented unit back together again. It also provided a chance to look at some promising youngsters and get a jump on spring training. Then the pace of change quickened. After a slow start at the winter meetings, the Orioles made off-season headlines, signing not 1 but 3 free agents. First, the acquisition of Fred Lynn from the California Angels, and center field was locked away. And then Lee Lacy, a longtime utility man turned regular who had hit 300 for the Pittsburgh Pirates, right field, was penciled in. And finally, an unknown quantity in Don Ossie, also from the Angels, with a solid reputation, but a bionic arm that had not been tested. The Orioles also added Frank Robinson to the coaching staff, bringing back one of the most popular players ever to play for the Birds. 3 free agents and 1 old favorite, and the whole town was buzzing with baseball fever. That enthusiasm was tempered a bit in January when Mike Flanagan ruptured an Achilles tendon during a basketball game, putting the Oriole left-hander out of action until at least mid-season. With that background, the Birds came to Miami to pick up the pieces and put them back where they belong. In the very first few days of camp, manager Joe Altobelli set the tone and mood for 1985.
I'll tell you what, I think they're going to remember both, but I think they're going to be a little angrier this year. We had a lot of players that came up with tough seasons last year, and I don't think it's going to take much. I think they'll put the uniform on and really go to work out here, and they're going to go at it maybe even bitterly. We do have some spots open in the pitching area, especially in the starters' roles. We have a spot or 2 open, but nonetheless, it's going to be a dog race. We do have an excess of outfielders, and it's going to be interesting.
The camp days were longer, the practices more intense. There were some who grumbled at first, but catcher Floyd Rayford remembers hearing another team grumble about hard work a year ago.
Well, I heard the same complaint, over, when I played against the Tigers last year in spring training when I was with the Cardinals. We went in there to play them, and I saw where they starters and stuff were going 7 and 8 innings, position players were going 7 and 8 innings, and they were, doing a lot of playing. So I think they were ready when they left spring training. I think we're going to be ready when we leave, too.
Well, I think that right now, Jack, everybody's come in here and everybody's working quite hard. Of course, when you come off of the finish that we came off of, not only does your management, but your ball players know that we got to go out here and we've got to do some things. And the additions that we've made to our ball club, I know I complimented Don Ossie on the way he's come in here and worked. He's coming from another organization. He's come in here, he's done every exercise, he's done everything that we've asked of him, and everybody in the camp is really working hard. They don't like to finish 5th.
It was embarrassing because that was the lowest that we've ever finished since I've been with the Orioles. The worst before that was 2nd place. And so we realize that we can be beat if we don't play our best baseball. If we don't concentrate. Just showing up ain't going to be enough.
I think there's a more serious attitude among all of us as far as recognizing that last year was not the best year in Oriole history, and we want to try to improve on it, and everybody's going about their work with that in mind.
With that challenge, the Orioles stepped into the spring of '85. No championship complacency this year. Rookies and wily veterans alike came in anxious, timid, and some perhaps even desperate. Like new boys at school trying to win approval from mates and teachers.
Got it! Take it!
That's the way it is at spring training. The time's easy for those with secure jobs. The time's tense for those who don't have that luxury. 3 guys who do have that luxury are the Orioles' new free agents. And we'll meet the new guys when we come back. Minds in the offseason to go after some free agents. They went after not just 1, but 3, and they landed 3 big ones. And as we found out during our stay at spring training, all 3 very much fit the Orioles mold. Fred Lynn, Lee Lacy, and Don Ossie, newcomers to Baltimore, free agents, something the Orioles had shied away from in the past, and then they signed 3 at one time, and one of them is Fred Lynn, a hated rival back in the mid to late 70s when he was with Boston. Then he did more damage to Oriole pitching of late as a member of the California Angels. When the Orioles signed Lynn, the buzz about town was, is he an Oriole type? Did he fit the mold?
Well, I just shaved my beard before I got here. I don't think I'll ever upset the apple cart as far as rules or tradition to go. I'm a pretty run-of-the-mill type guy. I don't create too many headlines, or at least I try not to. And I just go about my business and try to do my job.
His job was already defined, hit in the 5th spot behind Eddie Murray, and hopefully give Eddie a better selection of pitches.
I would expect that Eddie would get some more pitches with me behind him than he would otherwise. Although, you know, if you put Young behind him, I'm sure, you know, Mike's a good hitter too, and, you know, he's going to get his respect out of pitchers also. But we're going to be a potent lineup. Pitcher's going to have to definitely cannot pitch around any one individual unless he's extremely hot, and then you're going to pitch around him anyway. Doesn't matter who's coming up next. But I think we'll all complement each other.
Fred Lynn has done it all as an individual, won all the big awards, but the one big reward that has eluded him is a World Series championship, something he predicts will happen in the next 5 years with Baltimore. Now, if that does become a reality, he might be getting a lot more thanks from Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken. If it doesn't work out, Lynn knows he'll be hearing from them just as well.
Well, we'll see. Maybe they won't thank me. They say, what'd you come here for? But hopefully both those guys will get more pitches to hit. We'll have more guys on ahead of them, give them more chances to swing with men on base, and hopefully with myself and Mike Young or whoever's behind them, they'll get some pitches to swing at.
Lee Lacy has spent most of his career as a utility man. It's a label that's hard to shake once you're tagged with it. He got a chance to play full-time last year with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he responded, hitting .321, enough to convince the Orioles to sign him during the offseason and give the utility man an everyday job in right field.
It's sad to say that when I was a utility player, they wasn't as valuable as they are nowadays. Nowadays, utility players are a very valuable asset to a ball club. And when I was coming along, it was a lot of specialization in the utility roles, in baseball rather, and as a utility player, they didn't get the recognition for the job they accomplished in that particular role. And now, you know, they're looking for guys that can play a lot of positions. They need them because you're just as strong as your bench and your bullpen. I truly believe that. You know, you got to have a strong bench, you got to have a strong bullpen. You can put the greatest ball players out there on the field, but if you don't have a good replacement on the bench, if something happens to one of the guys that's out there playing every day, or if you don't have that guy, and the bullpen can come in there and then short innings when you really need that out and get that guy out, what good is the team?
Lee Lacy will have to wait a while before he debuts as an Oriole regular. On March 12th, he ruptured a ligament in his right thumb, and 3 weeks later, he was placed on the disabled list. Corrective surgery was needed, and Lacy will be out of the lineup until mid-May.
Ground ball, Traber should make the play. Fires over to first base, Ossie, and the side is retired. No runs, no hits, and no errors.
Free agent reliever Don Ossie was signed on the basis of what he might do instead of his past record. He has not pitched a great deal during the last 2 years, but the Orioles saw in him the help they needed in short relief, so they took a chance and signed the bionic arm to a contract.
The main injury was a torn ligament in my right elbow, and they took that out, took a tendon out of my left wrist and drilled through the two bones there and kind of figure-eighted it through and sewed it back together to replace the ligament, and they also transferred the nerve. It was a pretty major operation.
The arm responded nicely this spring, and Ossie's confidence level was restored.
Well, I think at first it probably does affect. You're a little apprehensive going out there and really cutting loose. But I've had a lot of time, and I think the biggest thing was that I had 9 months off before I did throw a ball for the first time. And I proved last year that I can come back and throw as hard as I did in the past, and so I feel fine. I have confidence, and the Orioles showed that they have confidence in me also.
When you add a trio of new guys, that means you must have let some of the older guys go. And that's what the Orioles did last year when veterans Jim Palmer, Al Bunbury, and Ken Singleton were all released from the ball club. This year, in a classy move from a classy organization, the Orioles put all three on the cover of the '85 Media Guide, in thanks for the memories. Palmer, Singleton, and Bunbury, a trio that will not soon be forgotten. Palmer pitched 18 years in an Oriole uniform. He is undoubtedly the very best ever to pitch for the Baltimore Orioles. 8 times he won 20 games, 3 Cy Young Awards, and a club record 258 wins. The line of lazy pitchers playing toss in Miami somehow seemed incomplete without number 22 in there. But Palmer did drop by spring training just to say hello and visit with his former teammates. And he did admit to missing baseball, but not enough to try and return to the game.
Really, I mean, I kind of miss it, and then I don't miss it. I don't miss being out here that much because I've kind of resigned myself that that's not going to really, or at least I don't think it's going to happen anymore.
C1, take 2. Remember, this is spring training.
time to get your team prepared, ready for the championship season. Be sure
Ken Singleton returned to Miami Stadium this year also, but his business was banking and not baseball. Singleton has left the game behind on the field and taken up a spot in the Toronto Blue Jays broadcast booth, but he has not left behind his memories of being an Oriole.
One thing I must say, once you're an Oriole, you're always an Oriole at heart, and nothing could replace those 10 years that I spent here, no matter how long I broadcast for any other team or whatever.
Who is that guy? It just doesn't look right. Al Bunbury, the B, wearing a San Diego Padres uniform. Bunbury refused to hang up the cleats after the Orioles released him at the end of the '84 season. He signed on with the Padres, and after an injury to left fielder Carmelo Martinez, San Diego penciled him in to start on opening day. The switch from East Coast to West Coast just hasn't sunk in yet with the B.
It was strange. I signed the autograph this morning, and I signed it my name, and I put number 1 down there. Then I caught myself. I said, wait a minute, I'm not back in Baltimore, but it's a change. And, you know, after having spent 12 years there, it was getting kind of tough, you know, thinking or realizing that I wasn't going back there this year. But coming out here is giving me a chance to play again. And whereas in Baltimore, I would not have had a chance to play in the big leagues anymore. So I'm looking forward to this spring training as a stepping stone to getting back to the big leagues.
No matter what uniform Al Bunbury is wearing now, he, just like Singleton and Palmer, will always be an Oriole. Stay with us when we come back and look at the veterans who make up most of the '85 lineup. A nice blend of veterans and youngsters as they head into the '85 season. And in a division like the American League East, the experience of veteran ball players can make a difference. The list of veteran players who will help lead the Orioles this year is led by 2 who need no introduction. Ripken and Murray. Murray and Ripken. However you say it, it has a ring to it that's a sweet melody to those wearing the orange and the black, and it strikes fear into the hearts of those in the opposing colors. The 2 make up the most dynamic 3-4 punch in the game today.
Deep to left field, watching the left fielder. Get in there, get in there, get in there!
All right, Rip. All right, Rip. Cal Ripken will turn 25 late this summer, and already he's been established as one of the most productive shortstops in years. He hits with power, he hits for average, he fields cleanly and precisely, and he's durable. 442 consecutive games, 3,991 consecutive innings, and throughout it all, he's been consistent. Now, once and for all, people have stopped asking questions about his ability and accepted the fact that he is that good and he is that consistent.
Well, I hope those kind of questions are gone. They're only natural to ask those kind of questions because there are a lot of players that come up and do really well, and then all of a sudden, for some reason or another, somebody catches up with a weakness and they don't do well that well for the rest of their career. But I think once you prove it your second year and once you prove it your third year, I think those questions start going out of people's mind. They figure, well, this guy can play. He's going to maybe hit 300 every year, and he might hit 25 or 30 home runs a year. They just expect that from you from then on. Then it's just a matter of going out there and putting the numbers on the board.
If consistency describes Cal Ripken, awesome might be the word for Eddie Murray. Year after year, his numbers top the team, leading the club in hitting, RBIs, home runs, and slugging percentage. In 1984, he hit over 300 and drove in 100-plus runs for the 3rd straight year, and he hit over 20 home runs for the 8th year in a row. All this, and Murray thinks he can still improve.
It's just something that's always there where you at least think you can improve. And as long as you got that on your side, I think you can basically do just that. And that's just the way I approach each year. Is not numbers, you know, saying I'm going to get this certain amount of, I'm going to shoot for that certain amount of doubles or this amount of home runs. It's just like an attack in the year as a whole. And it's been fairly good for me.
When veterans Fred Lynn and Lee Lacy joined the team, everyone immediately began to talk about how much those 2 would help the other 2.
Well, it's good to have Lacy up there because I still think he hit 320-something over in the National League. He's going to get on over here, and he has some speed, which might open up our game over here in Baltimore a little bit. We might start running a little bit. With Freddie, I think he's just going to have to prove to people that he can still play. You know, which he's capable of doing, but he's just going to have to go out there and, you know, I don't think whoever hits behind me is going to really make a difference. You know, I'm going to still, I think, basically see the same pitch that I normally see. And it's just a thing where he can have, I think, a very super year if, you know, he just goes out there and have a good year.
There are a few veterans with this club many thought would be wearing other uniforms this season, but things haven't worked out that way. Dan Ford, for instance. Ford came to camp written off by many, but the team had not given up hope that his creaky knees could return to 83 form. His bat sizzled in the spring, but Ford knew this would be a test.
Well, I know the spring was going to be a big trying year for me as far as my knee was concerned, plus my ability to be out here every day and playing. I know when I got to spring training, I was going to have to work hard because I know I was way behind, being off all year last year, and I was really just worried about just getting out here every day. And I know if I got here every day, I'd get some work in, I can get better, and as the spring went on.
Another veteran who was checking the yellow pages for moving vans this winter, second baseman Rich Dower. Gallons of ink and hours of airtime had him traded. But when camp opened, Rich was present, a few pounds lighter and ready to play second base or anywhere they needed him.
I found out this winter there's a possibility I could end up anywhere in the United States. It's you go out there and you play your best baseball. The infield is, I mean, no matter what's here, they can always go out and get somebody. You're really never sure of anything unless you're an Eddie Murray or a Cal Ripken. But the idea is go out and give it your best shot the whole time. And if you end up playing, if I end up playing third base, that's fine. As long as I just want to help the club as much as I can. But this year, I'm not only out for helping the club, I'm also out for helping myself.
To talk about the Orioles without talking about Rick Dempsey is like talking about the White House without mentioning the president. Rick Dempsey is Baltimore, hard-nosed, hard-working, and this spring Dempsey found himself back in camp without the spotlight of a World Series Most Valuable Player award and alone with his thoughts about what went wrong in 1984.
After you win a World Series, it's hard to comprehend how hard you have to play right out of day one of spring training to get that hungriness back again. The talent was definitely there last year. Maybe the desire wasn't.
If Rick Dempsey was the only catcher in camp, he would still work like a rookie scratching for his first job. Unlike some veterans, Dempsey never takes his job for granted.
Well, I'm ready again to bring out the best now. You know, my arm doesn't hurt anywhere near like it was last year. I don't feel at this point like it's as strong as it has been in the past, but there's no pain there, and every day it gets a little bit stronger. So I'm not worried about that part of the game right now. There is always competition for my job. If it isn't here on the ball club, it's somewhere else in the league. You better believe it, because if I don't do my job, what they expect me to do, they'll find somebody else somewhere else. So you never take that job for granted.
There were a lot of positions that could not be taken for granted this spring, and two veterans came into camp knowing that by the end of spring, they might not be in the plans for 85. Lowenstein and Renicky. The two names have been tied together as one the past few years as they share the spot in left field. John Lowenstein came into the spring of 85 knowing he'd have to fight for a job on the roster and knowing it could end with a trade or a release or all of the above. With 1 week left in camp, we talked to John. And when we told him that manager Joe Altobelli had just said he wasn't ready to give up on Lowenstein, he reacted with his usual flair for the unexpected.
He just wants to go. Like a lot of bull to me, I'll tell you that. Looks like Lynn Lacey and Young to me in the outfield. Of course, that's great talent. It's a wealth of talent. And Joe just wants to maintain a spirit of enthusiasm, provide the proper motivation for the ball club during spring training. But I don't need that. I'll play the game the only way I know how. That's hard. And Joe's in a position where he has to determine the proper scheme of things for the ball club. And of course you have to appreciate that as an athlete, because it's a business. And that's the way I look at it. And I'm just going to do my best, and of course everybody else has to make up their own mind.
This spring was a different one for Gary Renicky. Tight-lipped, quiet, and determined, he went about his task. He knew he was fighting a numbers game, and his numbers for 84 and for the spring were less than vintage Renicky. When he did talk about it, he talked softly about the mental strain of competition and pressure.
The game is so mental. A lot of people have equal ability, you know, with the exception of maybe the Lynns and the Murrays and the Ripkins, but everybody's was all everything in high school and college, and then you come up here and the mental game plays a big part of it. Sure, you know, you're not used certain situations, and you can't get down because the time you get in there could be a crucial spot. So, you know, you have to keep yourself in the ballgame.
Injuries play a... One of the unsettled spots going into the spring this year was at third base. What the Orioles were looking for at third was simple: run production. Wayne Gross last year hit 22 home runs and had 64 RBIs, platooning at third with Todd Cruz. Those numbers were second only to Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken. Memorial Stadium suits Gross's pull-hitting style very well, and that makes up for the .214 average. Todd Cruz was released 2 weeks ago because the Orioles finally gave up on turning him into a hitter. Cruz is one of the strongest arms in baseball. Defensively, he's very valuable to the Birds, but his weak bat was his downfall. Enter newcomer Fritz Connolly. An offseason trade that looked like a minor league deal brought Connolly over from San Diego. He was an all-star in AAA, but failed to impress in previous chances. This year he changed all that, hitting near 300, and he refused to be intimidated.
Not really, because, I mean, I've been to spring trainings with the Padres, and Garvey and Gossage were there, and Say and Buckner were with the Cubs, and I wasn't really in awe that much, but it's always a sight to be around guys that you read about and you see in the newspapers every day. So I was in awe a little bit, but not a whole lot.
We'll hear more from Connolly later in the show as we talk to some of the Orioles' up-and-comers. John Shelby fell into that category a couple of years back, but the young outfielder still remains somewhat of a puzzle to the Orioles. Shelby, of course, came up through the minor league system at the end of the '82 season. His pure talent and minor league numbers indicated he'd be an instant hit with the O's. After hitting .258 in '83, he dipped to .209 last year. He's definitely a star of the Orioles' future, but they're wondering if that future is now and toying with sending him back. Think of the Orioles catchers, you think of Rick Dempsey. His supporting cast consists of Joe Nolan and Floyd Rayford. Nolan missed most of last year with injuries. Rayford, a very strong replacement for an injured Dempsey last year, a very valuable asset. The O's' new acquisitions meant Jim Dwyer didn't get many swings this spring, but he says it's like that every year. Keeps himself ready by working overtime. Once again looks valuable as a pinch hitter for the Orioles. Dwyer, too, is bouncing back from injuries. Len Sakata has spent his 6 years in the majors coming off the bench, pinch hitting, and as a late-inning replacement. He's established as someone who can pull out a good clutch hit and give you steady defense. This spring, he's making some noise with the bat as well. And if Sakata's bat stays as hot as it has this spring, you'll see a lot more of him this year at second base as the Birds try and beef up the run production in 1985. The pitchers wouldn't mind that at all, and when we come back, we'll examine that pitching staff, one that many call the best in baseball.
I'm Susan White Bowden at Memorial Stadium. As you can see, the stands are empty right now, but on Monday they will be filled with Oriole fans. I'll also be out here with a Channel 2 cameraman roaming the stadium looking for the super fan of opening day to spotlight on Susan's people on Newscope. So if you're a Bird backer, be here on opening day and be on the lookout for me. I'll be the one in the inconspicuous clothing.
Time-tested axioms of baseball is you can't win without good pitching. I guess that explains why the Orioles are the winningest team in the game over the past 20 years. Pitching has taken the Baltimore Orioles a long way.
It's the kind of sight that warms your soul if you're an Oriole fan. Storm Davis chatting with Jim Palmer. Cy Old and Cyclone. The end of one era of great pitching, the beginning of another. Great pitching. The term is synonymous with Orioles baseball. Over the years, people have come to acknowledge it, expect it, and at times even demand it. That's why the job of pitching coach for the Orioles is a tough one. And that's why the man who handles it is one of the most respected men in the major leagues. In 6 years with Baltimore, Ray Miller has produced 5 different 20-game winners. And that brings a kind of attention that sometimes can be difficult to handle.
I usually come into spring quite humble, John, because I do the banquet circuit, and usually I follow the owner, general manager, and 2-star players. I'm about the 6th speaker, and every one of them says, well, we know we'll have good pitching this year, and I go down in the chair each time I hear that.
Although his players, to a man, will disagree, Miller claims the physical ability is strictly their gift. The mental part of it, well, that's where he comes in.
The mental part of it is my game. You got to have great people in the minor leagues like Kenny Rowe teaching pitches, but at the big league level, the mental part of it is my game, and we're doing some things different. We just had a meeting on the Yankees, which I hope works out, and what we're doing this year is having all the pitchers participate in the meeting. This is kind of an open forum. Let's talk about Don Baylor. What can you do with him? What can't you do? And getting great participation out of that. And I think it's going to help educate the guys that are quiet.
The Oriole pitching staff got a kick in the keister in early January. Mike Flanagan went down to an injury from a torn Achilles tendon he got playing basketball on the Orioles team. And suddenly the look of the pitching staff changed. Flanagan hobbled south to work toward a midseason return, and although he tried not to let it bother him, watching the others work out took its emotional toll.
It's tough for me because I know the first time I hurt my knee, when I came back, I wasn't worrying so much about me coming in, but was I going to bump McGregor off his day, or was I going to, was I going to reshuffle the rotation so much that it was going to hurt everybody my coming back in? So it becomes more of a mental game in play, but I think they'll find a place for me somewhere.
An earlier Flanagan injury in '83 had opened the door for Mike Boddicker, and so did the new problem open the door for a youngster this year. In stepped Bill Swaggerty, only to have the door slammed shut hard. An 0-3 record, an ERA of 9, and with a week left in camp, he was sent to Rochester. The door stayed open for Ken Dixon. Up from AA ball with a mean curve ball and a gritty presence, he bewildered batters in the spring games, going inning after inning without allowing a run. And he learned from the veterans around him.
Poise and control. That's something that they display every time they go out there, and that's the kind of control I would like to have.
Let's check the starting rotation, and let's begin with Mike Boddicker. Here he is, nailing down his 20th win in Boston last year, an accomplishment that established the Iowa native as one of baseball's best. Boddicker had worked a long time to earn his spot in the big leagues, and now that he reached that point, he's an example to other young pitchers who are plagued by impatience.
I try to use my situation as an example. I spent a lot of time in Rochester. And every year they send me out, they say, well, there's not quite any room. You just got to be patient. You just got to be patient. And at the end of the World Series in '83, Hank Peters went to me and says, we're patient, that paid off. And it did. Sometimes there's just no room right at the moment. Maybe you should be up here. Who knows? But you got to wait your turn. If you get the shot, you got to take advantage of it.
Scott McGregor, quiet, unassuming, and above all, dependable, fills another starting spot in the rotation. The steady performer has won 13 or more games each year for 7 straight seasons. His 93-50 record over the last 6 years represents the highest won-loss percentage in the major leagues for that period. The youngster of the pitching staff is 23-year-old Storm Davis. In only his second season as a full-time starter, Davis was 14-9 in '84 with an ERA of 3.12, and many feel that Davis is still learning how to pitch in the bigs.
There's a fine line to whenever you just have to rear back and challenge people. There's a time in every game when you have to do that, and fortunately, I've been blessed with a fastball that I can throw 5 people sometimes, not all the time. But now, yesterday, sometimes when you take a beating or down here, you start, you get in a jam, you learn how to pitch, change speeds, and that's what spring training is to me, is learning how to pitch in jams and getting other pitches over the plate, changing speeds, and that's what I've been trying to work on this spring.
With Flanagan out, Dennis Martinez found himself in the spotlight. Forget the winter trade talk. Now Dennis is suddenly expected to be the 4th starter. Martinez came to camp and not only impressed the Orioles brass with his pitching, but with his winning edge in that battle with alcoholism.
I got my confidence back. I said, well, Dennis, I know you can do it. I know you can be a winner again. You don't have to be fear of failure anymore. I feel free of all those feelings. So I just go right after them, even though it's got to be aggressive out there because it's an intimidate game. If I'm not aggressive with the hitter, they will be aggressive against me.
In the bullpen, the arms look loaded for '85. A trio of talented performers expected to share 90% of the load. Free agent Don Ossie, the new guy in town, will share the short relief with veteran Tippy Martinez, who appears recovered from his shoulder problems of '84. If both remain healthy, the big question may be, will there be enough work for the two of them?
Ideologically, when you walk out of spring training, you say, boy, we got the left-right combination anytime we won and all that. But what happens when the season starts, especially after the first time you lose a couple ball games somewhere, whoever's hot gets the ball. And it's kind of a revolving thing. What you hope for is that if Tippy's not hot, Ossie is, and if Ossie's not hot, Tippy is. But
the addition of Ossie put Sammy Stewart back in his former role of long and middle relief man. It's been a cycle for Stewart. He moved when asked to short relief, but he fought it and then finally accepted it. And now he's back as the middleman. But this time he says he understands his role and has readily accepted it.
When I come down here, there's no question that I'm going to be in that
bullpen, and I just have to get myself ready this year to be able to go 6 or 7, because I think that if one of those starters get knocked out, I'm hoping they'll go to me and let me do that long relief role, and then they can come back if they want to and pitch some middle and short to help out Ossie and Tippy.
Even without Mike Flanagan, pitching coaches and managers around the league can only watch and admire with envy the staff Baltimore will take north in '85. Consistently, and that's the key word, consistently one of the best staffs in baseball.
You have to be consistent to win, and I think we stay consistent. And I think this staff, you know, reasonable health, I think this staff will be as good as anyone I've ever had. I thought last year the starting was the most consistent I've had since I've been here. The bullpen was a little bit short last year, but then so were the runs scored. Wasn't as many games to protect.
If they can stay healthy, this year's staff once again appears on paper to be one of the best in the game. The Orioles have some young players that are turning heads around the league, and we'll take a look at some of them when we come back. Stay with us.
Details at Horn & Horn
Farm system sends up a gem to the big leagues. They usually come up slowly and then blossom into stardom. And that storyline fits very well the story of Orioles outfielder Mike Young, the leader of the pack among the up-and-coming birds. 25-year-old Mike Young has what hundreds of other up-and-coming young players would love to have. A powerful stroke, a strong arm, and he's being touted as a future superstar. They call him the next Eddie Murray. Young came on strong to start in 51 of the last 55 games and finished the year with more home runs than any other Oriole the last 2 months of the season. The late season surge served as an omen of things to come. Mike Young was ready for the big leagues, and the big leagues were ready for Mike Young. But Young, who seems years more mature than his age, knows that in this game of baseball, nothing is a sure bet.
I always leave room in my mind for disappointment because nothing is ever 100% sure. And like me coming into spring training and realizing that there were going to be a lot of outfielders and there were going to be a lot of competition involved in certain spots, being that there were only going to be a few spots open. So I continue to work hard. I don't think that a person should take anything for granted, and I will continue to work hard, even though if they come up to me and say, Mike, you'll be starting in left field opening day, it doesn't matter. I mean, the statement would be nice to hear and would be nice to accept, but the fact that I would just continue to go out and just play hard and just to work hard.
For Mike Young, life in the big leagues is a dream come true. The Hayward, California native always wanted to be where he is today, and believe it or not, most of his childhood friends tried to tell him at an early age that someday it would all come true.
Well, to be totally honest with you, I think ever since I was 10 or 12, I had my friends tell me, come up to me and say, you know, you're going to be in the major leagues one day. Well, at 10 or 12, I really found that kind of hard to believe, although I played the sport quite frequently. But, you know, they look up to me. It's like, man, you're in the big leagues now. And friends that I never knew I have now.
Unlike Mike Young, Larry Sheets was not sure baseball was what he wanted. Twice the 25-year-old Virginian left the game, and twice he came back. Drafted ahead of Cal Ripken Jr. in the same year, Sheets is a prospect the Orioles consider highly valuable. And now it seems he has finally decided to cash in on some of his potential.
Well, this is something that's, you know, to be in this position has taken me 25 years to get here, and right now I don't want to lose that opportunity. So to answer your question, yes, very much so. This is where I want to be. It's what I want to be doing, and I'm excited about it.
If the soft-spoken Sheets lacks confidence in his ability, Jim Traber, another up-and-comer, is the exact opposite. Traber hails from Columbia, Maryland, and he burst on the scene last year in September when he came up from Double-A to play in 10 games in front of his hometown friends and relatives. Some have called the 23-year-old outfielder first baseman cocky. He calls it confidence.
Well, I think that a lot of people might think that I'm cocky, but I think that cockiness or overconfidence, you might call it, I think that has helped me a lot this year because when I was moved up to the big leagues last year, a lot of people would have been in awe, a lot of the players. And I had a lot of respect for them because I know that there are a lot of great players. But, you know, I felt that I belonged there. And you know, I didn't hit the ball real well up there, but I felt that I showed people that I have ability to play there. So I think that my confidence or cockiness, whatever you want to call it, has helped me in the long run.
Every spring there seems to be one surprise, one guy who comes out of East Nowhere to be Mr. Somebody. This year that tab belongs to non-roster third baseman Fritz Lee Connolly, a big raw-boned 6'4", 210-pound Texan who came into town like John Wayne with guns a-blazing to win himself a job. The big fella didn't say much. He just let his bat do the talking, hitting over 300 throughout the spring. And when he did talk, it was about how hard the adjustment was for him being the new kid in town.
It's kind of tough for me because I'm not real outgoing. I don't come up to people and start talking with them and stuff like that. So it's tough to make new friends, especially when you don't say a whole lot. But I'm getting used to it.
There are a few very young up-and-comers who call Baltimore home and someday hope to play in front of their friends and family at Memorial Stadium. One of them has a very familiar name, Ripken. Billy Ripken, that is. He's a shortstop like brother Cal, and at 20 is making the moves through the Orioles minor league system. Having an all-star for a big brother can tend to put some pressure on a young player, but not on Bill. He's Cal's biggest fan. Billy will likely start the year in Charlotte. Jeff Schaefer, a former University of Maryland Terrapin second baseman where he was all ACC, last year in Charlotte, he led the Southern League in fielding, a big hitter in college, but hasn't blossomed yet as a pro. Jeff Gilbert is a pitcher from Baltimore, shown here throwing to another Baltimore product, catcher Frank Villeggia. Villeggia was drafted last year out of the University of Alabama, where he was all Southeastern Conference. The Orioles will nurture him well. The system needs catchers. Playing for the Orioles, a team he grew up watching, would be a dream come true.
To have the tradition of Gus Triandus and Rick Dempsey, and just trying to work my way up into the major leagues is just a thrill in itself. And being a catcher, you're in the limelight all the time. The camera's always on you, and it's a good position. And I just hope that I have success with it.
We wish all of those youngsters a lot of luck as they work their way towards the big leagues. When we come back, a look at the men who will run the ball club in 1985. Stay with us. Game played on the field. The game of baseball begins in the offices of its owners, general managers, and coaching staff. Jack Dawson gives us a look at the brain trust who will lead the Orioles in 1985.
They say it all begins at the top, and the top of the Oriole ladder is owner Edward Bennett Williams. Williams surveyed his fifth-place ball club late last year and decided to open his checkbook and make some changes. One thing that the owner and general manager, Hank Peters, decided not to change was the manager. Despite rumors to the contrary, Joe Altobelli was retained as skipper, even though Williams would not give him a vote of confidence.
The thing I've learned about giving votes of confidence to your manager, it's like giving the kiss of death to him. The fact that we have our coaching staff back intact, plus in addition, the fact that we have our manager back should send a message that we have confidence in them. We have a better team. I think we have a stronger coaching staff.
Hints of off-season controversy among the brain trust revolving around the return of Frank Robinson. A popular player with the Orioles, Robinson was hired, perhaps not by unanimous consent, to assist Joe Altobelli as bench coach. Speculation was that if the bird slipped in April, Frank would be there to take over when Joe was ousted. Neither Altobelli nor Robinson had a whole lot to say about that scenario in Florida. From the opening of camp, it was clear it was Joe's team. Robinson kept his distance, primarily working with the hitters in the right field cage or talking with the outfielders in center field. If you asked Robinson to talk about it, he declined, wanting only to talk about how good it felt to be back with the Orioles.
The most important thing is when I played there with my teammates and things, we won. And that's what it's all about. We won 4 out of the 6 years I was there. I came back for a year as a coach, and we won 1 out of the 2 years I was there. So that's what it's all about, winning. And it's a great feeling to be with the players. They're all treated the same. They all act the same.
Good-natured Joe Altobelli started his 3rd year with the Orioles in good spirits. In 2 years at the helm, he'd experienced the highest high and the lowest low, as last year he watched his team fall right in front of him. But this spring, he was back at it, working harder, getting a bit more involved, and surveying the new-look Orioles that owner Williams and general manager Peters had presented him. Altobelli's a hard man to get to talk about himself. Ask him what key he holds to molding a winner, and for sure, it will be the players he mentions first.
Obviously, you have a good bench and have a good players, kind of like Cal and Eddie. That always helps. I don't think there's been too many managers that have taken a so-so ball club and have won with it. You're going to have some good ball players. And usually when you mention good ball players, they're not only good in a uniform, they're also very helpful out of uniform as well, as we have on our ball club.
Joe's supporting cast in '85 is a familiar one. Ray Miller, of course, heads up the pitching staff. Cal Ripken Sr. will be in the third base box once again for the 8th year. Jimmy Williams will hold down the fort at first base. Elrod Hendricks will bring his good cheer to the bullpen. And the new guy is not very new at all. Former player Terry Crowley joins the big club as the hitting instructor. A natural transition for the man they called the King of Swing.
My own particular case, you know, as a player, I feel as though I helped some hitters, some of my teammates. You know, we constantly talked about hitting, and I know the major part of my big league career I roomed with Rick Dempsey, and we constantly talked about hitting, and so that part of the game, I've always been involved in the hitting aspect of the game.
So from top to bottom, the Orioles are refurbished and retreaded for another year. It's been a long trip from the World Series champions to 5th place last season, but the warmth of Miami in the spring of '85 seems to have given the Orioles a new attitude for the coming season. Get ready for 1985, and it all starts right here at noon on Monday. We'll have the noon news show, followed by Orioles on Deck at 12:30, and then the game at 2 o'clock. Enjoy the season. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Orioles Magic, Alive in '85, has been brought to you in part by Coors. Stock up now on the cold, refreshing taste of Coors where you buy beer. Coors to you. By Nissan and your nearby Nissan dealers. See one today for a test drive. And by Horn & Horn Smorgasbord. Great comebacks at a great price.
From 34 to give it all they've got.
They just expect that from you from then on. Then it's just a matter of going out there and putting the numbers on the board.
And you never know who's gonna hear the call.
Just like an attacking the year as a whole, and it's been fairly good for me.
Every game there's a different star. That's the magic of Orioles.